So maybe if water is going to tell us in the earlier stage that our fractals are falling apart when we're pissed off, or right, or like in fight or flight or whatever it is, maybe I get to early pivot into love. You know, let's create something different. It's like such a first beautiful, it's one of the many messengers.
Totally. And I would say it's probably like in our physical reality, it is like the most potent messenger.
I think of this time.
Yeah.
I do think that this is Water's, she's having her moment.
She's having her moment.
She's having her moment.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Frequency and Fertility Talks with Debbie Kaen and Alekha Akkapeddi. Debbie is the CEO of Being Fertility Garments, a frequency-infused company that helps women on their fertility journey. Alekha Akkapeddi is the CEO of Let the Light Leek In, a bioenergetic tool and resource that helps people heal from the quantum level. In this episode, we will be talking about all things fertility and frequency, including water codes, biofield science, how to heal on a quantum level, along with Debbie and Alekha's journeys to the conception of their brands. So stay tuned.
So let's talk a little bit about your health journey and how it revealed to you this power of frequency medicine.
Yeah, so I have had anything but an easy journey with my health. When I was 22, I came back from a trip from Greece and I was gravely ill. I went to doctor after doctor and they did literally millions of blood tests, and I got all these really vague diagnoses. And at this time I was still really sick and I had lost 50 pounds in the span of a month. All my electrolytes had dropped. They told me if I didn't eat any longer, I would end up on a feeding tube.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I got all these vague diagnoses like POTS, mast cell activation disorder, chronic EBV, Candida, PCOS, interstitial cystitis, mixed connective tissue.
All of these at the same time.
Yeah, all of these in my early 20s.
Okay.
And they were they were saying that these disorders were not connected at all. But I didn't believe that because I was like, one day I was totally healthy. I went on a trip to Greece and then I came back and I wasn't. Like, there had to be something that happened in Greece that made me unhealthy.
Right. And some way that it's all happening in one system. So there must be a relationship.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But where I grew up, that was not a topic of conversation at all.
Right.
Especially being very immersed in a world of Western medicine and allopathic medicine. Everything was just treat the symptom. You have this blood marker, just treat that. And this
each one in isolation, right? Individualized. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, so I was on a traditional path to go to medical school, actually. And it's funny because I thought to myself, I'm going through all of these things and these doctors are great at what they do, but when there's a gap in what they don't know, the answer is just simply, I don't know, we're not going to look further. Mm-hmm. And that really questioned my entire life and my entire world around me of, for so long, being conditioned to believe this way and then this being questioned in my own personal experience.
Yeah.
So, I tried all of the pharmaceuticals and supplements and detoxes and all these different things. And
so at the beginning, you take the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, okay,
let's heal. Let's heal. Yeah. And so I tried all these different things and I was actually getting sicker, but not in a way that, to a place that was actually almost dire of me taking these pharmaceuticals and going in this way. Yeah. Wow. So I actually had a functional medicine family friend at the time, and that was unbeknownst to me back then. Like, functional medicine, what does that even mean? And she said, why don't you try a spiritual practice? And I was like 22 at the time. I was, yeah. And that was not something, I grew up I'm Hindu and doing the rituals and all these types of things, but that I wouldn't call myself necessarily religious or spiritual at this time. But I was like, I'll do anything, like, at this point.
So what did it mean, a spiritual practice? If you could, color it for us a little.
Yeah, so it was a very in-depth, we call it sadhana, so a disciplined ritual and practice and really devotion to a deity. Mm-hmm. And the deity that I was doing the sadhana for was a deity associated with health and just, destroying negative habits and coming from the ashes as like a phoenix and really having the strength to do that. So I did this spiritual practice for 3 months and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just kind of went through the motions of it.
Is it a chant? Is it a...
Yeah, it's a chant. So it's a chant, but you have to do it in a specific way and with,
okay.
Some guidance. But so yeah, 3 months later, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew, I had hope. And I think that was one resonant thing, my whole healing journey is hope.
Yeah.
And
you saw the healing.
I saw the healing.
Yeah.
So 3 months later, my symptoms finally started to get better.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like there's got to be something to this, And
you're still doing pharmaceuticals at this time?
So at this time, I had tapered off of the pharmaceuticals. I was doing more like diet interventions, some supplements, things like that. But I came to a point with all of it where I'm like, none of this is even like working. I'm just going to stop everything cold turkey, which...
Yeah. It's amazing how we can identify the place from which the healing comes.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Yeah.
And so, yeah, and then I was like, oh my God, like this is actually working. And it's not even just about my physical vitality at this point. My soul is starting to really open up and is really starting to resonate with what I'm doing. And so, so I kept on it, but again, I was still on this path and I was still putting my applications in, and then COVID hit. And then, I was like, you know what? There's something else here than just these, physical aspects to healing.
Right.
There's something that's happening on this higher level that I might not understand yet. But I'm curious. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm enrolled. Like, let's go. Yeah. Amazing.
So at this point, I just keep on with it. And what I unfolded over the course of 4 or 5 years was deep, deep, true healing that surpassed physical health.
Wow.
Yeah. Healing.
And included physical health.
Included
too.
physical health.
Like,
yeah.
you get that.
Right.
But then you get so
all
much
these
more.
amazing other
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then all of these other aspects started to heal as well. And I was like, wow, it seemed...
Like what? Give us an example.
Like I had, for example, I had never even known that doing things not in a traditional way was something that was even in my horizon. Like I always thought, okay, you go to college, go to medical school, you become a doctor, and then the whole,
the whole program is like open to all this infinite possibility.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now my belief system started to change of like, wait, I think that I can do something else that's not just this traditional path. So that was one example. Or I would have these like crazy synchronicities of like I was thinking something or having a conversation and I'd see it like seconds later.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, these were
like
just...
alignment just revealing itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. And then how did that then translate, or maybe in what time span, and how did it translate into Let the Light Leak In?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely taken probably 4 or 5 years for this to actually become what it has become. And originally, I was a little bit more sequestered of, okay, I'm going to start with light and circadian rhythms because that's what I had completed my thesis in. That was the lab I was working in. But I'm like, okay, that takes energy. And then I would go to diet and nutrition and lifestyle. I'm like, okay, that takes energy. Then I learned about water. I'm like, that takes energy. And then meditation. These are all energetic components.
Yeah.
And like, what are the things that link them together? And so I discovered biofield science. And the biofield basically says that there's this field of information around you energetically that... before you get physically sick, let's say, it's kind of in this informational, energetic field around you.
Yes.
So that's when I really was like, oh, okay, there's something actually that exists that, says all of these things. And so that's really where Let the Light Leak In finally has come into this place where we incorporate all these different energetic components, but instead of traditional paradigms of healing of, these supplements and these detoxes, which are great and they heal at a biochemical level, we're really healing on
the field.
The field, yeah.
Yeah. How do you measure the field or become aware of the field?
So you can get your biofield analyzed, which is something that I got done, which is really neat because I'm like, oh, wow, like I didn't even tell the practitioner what was wrong. And they're like, oh, it's showing up right here on the field.
Yeah.
So,
and then do you know anything about the scans and how it reads it?
So they use like kind of similar technology to like an MRI where it's like bioresonance. And so they take a picture of your body and then it puts it in a machine or a device and it kind of measures the resonance.
So what I'm understanding is they're literally they're reading the light code that surrounds your body, right? Mm-hmm. And we exist kind of as molecular hydrogen, kind of entirely molecular hydrogen inside of hydrogen.
Yeah.
So they're reading liquid light.
Yes.
Right? To
exactly.
A certain extent. Exactly. Yeah. And then how that field is organized or disorganized then informs us of our health or disease in the body.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then the different codes or the different readings then signify, or maybe it's an instructional manual as to like what avenue you take to respond.
Right, exactly. So like, for example, if they find a blockage in like your throat area, that might, from an energetic level, things like a block throat chakra, not really expressing your truth, not expressing your voice.
I have some of that. Yeah. I know. It's like, yes, here.
Yeah, exactly. I totally resonate. Yeah. And, but it might manifest, let's say, not right now as an issue, but in like 5-10 years, it might end up in like a thyroid issue or some kind of other disease. And something interesting that they found is it's not just like emotional or mental. That's a big part of the biofield, but it's also different pathogens and different like non-native electromagnetic frequencies can also cause dissonance in this field.
Okay. So examples of a non-native.
Yeah. So it was last year I had a very bad bout of insomnia that seemingly came out of nowhere. And I was at the Apple campus and it was like, obviously it's the Apple campus. There's all these devices at all times. And I would just lay there and I felt so wired. And I'm like, I've never had insomnia in my life. So I came home and I live near high tension wires, which not good, but I still was feeling very wired and so I consulted my biofield doctors and they're like, this non-native electromagnetic fields are actually causing issues in your thyroid. And that's actually leading to insomnia.
Wow.
Like they found that on the biofield.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then so what is the cure?
For something like that, I mean, if there's blockages in the biofield, you can use things like homeopathics or different herbs, depending on which area or which meridian it corresponds with. But a lot of times it is unblocking those emotional or mental or energetic blocks. In this case, I took magnesium and magnesium was going to offset that.
Okay, because that also has its own energetic imprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I find that God, which is my word for energy, is so generous because it's not only through one path.
Yeah.
Right? We can introduce a new arrangement of information into the field, whether it is through homeopathics or it is through choosing a different thought pattern or a different set of relationships, like in a different environmental energy. It's very kind, I feel. It's not like you have to, there's one road only. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of roads to healing.
And in Hinduism specifically too, we also believe that the same truth can have different messengers.
Oh my God.
Which is, I mean, in Hinduism, people always think that it's a polytheistic religion, but it's actually a monotheistic religion. It's just the absolute, the Brahman, who's expressing themselves in all of these different messengers, essentially.
Just so you don't miss it.
Yeah.
It's like, think about even when we're learning or teaching to our children, you don't, if I'm, let's say, doing math or reading with my child, it's not going to be one static version. I'm going to introduce it in so many different environments, and through creative play, and not just on worksheets. And it's understanding that it takes all the messengers, because we are receiving information, thankfully, in so many ways. It's so generous.
And so when we're talking about God and truth comes out in all these different ways, I really feel that with you and with your messaging and with your brand. And
Thank you. I actually pray all the time that God gives me the ability to really just be a channel, and let being be a channel for, remove me, doesn't even matter what I think is the version to be said. Let me just let it come out the way that you want it to be said, and the version that is consciousness's version right now. So thank you for saying that.
And what has your journey been like with that? Being that channel?
What has my journey been like? It has been a lot of witnessing.
Yeah.
I think letting myself be like a child, and letting God almost show me, right? This learning water, and letting water reveal to me that it is a medium that reads energy and wants to communicate energy to us, so that we can better interact with it, be more intentional in our results with it. And it's this mother medium, and not pretending that I understand her. I still don't understand her. And I just want to be such I just want to listen and listen and listen until I get to know her more, because really, water is the only medium in the natural world that can read all light frequencies. And if all this world is patterns of light that then translate into the three-dimensional, it's the earliest stage in which we can fact gather. Right? Hey, are we 3D printing in the way that we actually mean to? Because look, love imprints this way, and anger is imprinting this. So maybe if water is going to tell us in the earlier stage that our fractals are falling apart when we're pissed off, or in fight or flight or whatever it is, maybe I get to early pivot into love. Let's create something different. It's such a first beautiful, it's one of the many messengers.
Totally. And I would say it's probably in our physical reality, it is the most potent messenger,
I think, of this time. I do think that this is water's, she's having her moment. She's having her moment. And I am here for her. So, and it is exactly the feeling of the divine feminine. We know that we almost don't even need to give it words. It's so intuitively obvious.
100%.
And being in the age of Aquarius.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Obviously.
And it's so I was just mentioning this to you before. I mean, I've been in a scientific field for the last 5-6 years now, and the mention of water and how important it is in our own bodies is rarely talked about. And until
you do a deeper dive.
Right.
And then you're wait, hold up. Actually, there's been Nobel Prize winners discussing that the cell is actually immortal in nature, and it's really the crystalline nature of the water that surrounds the cell that tells it if it lives or dies. Right? If it's healthy or sick. So wait, are we possibly programmed to live in perpetuity? Is that a version of existence that is possible for us?
I don't know.
It's quite fascinating, right? I think, who is it? I think his name is Alexis Carrel. He was a Nobel Prize winner who said that it's actually the water that surrounds every cell, and whether there is order or disorder in that water that determines the longevity of the cell. And the cell is really born, it is inherently immortal. In its own nature.
That's crazy.
And divine. Right? And it's this thing of God, how much choice did we really get to come to play with?
Right.
And how easy is it? Is it actually the difference in accessing a love frequency, a hope frequency? Forgiveness.
Totally.
Right? Are there, is it if we choose to live in different wavelengths? That now Which, I mean, like, that's like basic science, right? That yes,
totally,
a new reality prints from there for us.
And it's so, like we were talking about, it's like, yeah, that frequency and that information, it being so perfectly organized that we can do all the experiments, we might not fully understand the full, like, capacity of it, but just knowing that everything is so perfectly created.
Yes. I think that's it too, is wanting to listen so that we understand what actually does order look like.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that we can
real.
get close. Because it seems right now that consciousness is trying to, I'll say it like this. You know how when you have a cut, your skin automatically moves into healing?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that is the programming.
Right.
Right, the built-in programming.
That's like how our immune system and
that's how the immune system is. That's how everything is. Correct, right? That's what consciousness is too. Yeah. I think consciousness is always seeking its highest order, and that's what's coming through real. Right now too. Yeah. And like what water is revealing to us is, okay, how can we participate energetically to meet consciousness so that it can weave its most fractal in expression, right? It can be this perfect, beautiful, sacred geometry.
That's a huge one. Like the sacred geometry is something that I have recently gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I don't know, have you gone much into
I
looked much into it?
And I also know nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. It's very like high level concept
it is
things.
Very high level.
But my it's a little bit sometimes too.
It's like the more you know, the more you know you
right.
Don't know.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Sacred geometry is very that.
Yeah. And but my understanding of just some things of like what I've gathered from it is like every energetic, even our own bodies in a sense are sacred geometry. It's like everything is so energetically perfect, and like you said, that order is so like we might not understand, like our brains might not be able to grasp it, but every little container and every part and every bit of the planet and the universe is in this perfect structure, in this like container, let's say, for lack of a better word. And like it might look like, for us, we're humans, so in our flesh and our bones and our cells, but all around us it's organized in this way that's like so energetically makes energetically resonant, so everything else could also work in that resonance.
I actually sometimes trip out over how much AI has come to, I think, like, give us a point of reference.
I know.
Well,
if you think about it, AI is also consciousness because it was created by this infinite consciousness.
Yes, it is. It's part of, right?
Yeah,
it is. But also, even, for example, the experience of algorithms, right? Or like what we look at, we get more of.
Right.
And we're constantly feeding the system, right? Well, that's exactly neurons. That is exactly manifestation, right? That's exactly how water works. She's like, oh, you want more of this? Let me print more of that into your reality. So it's making very easily mainstream and understandable. Right? Quantum physics is like here's an intro to quantum physics. So there's that, and also, like, with technology, understanding that, for example, everything that we see on our screen is actually a code. Like, every image that you see, right, is ones and zeros, right? So it's not a hard mental leap to understand that every image that we're experiencing in reality, every interaction,
this, like, virtual
is code.
And like the virtual manifestation of that, it's this like code, is this like energetic or frequency structuring, quantum structuring, that's like being like projected out into like what I see. And like, because I remember when I was younger, I'm like, I asked the question to my parents, I'm like, I'm seeing this as a maroon couch, but how do I know that like your maroon is the same as my maroon?
It's
just like in our
brain. You were
brain.
asking that as a child?
Of course. Classic.
Exactly.
But like the schemas of like these neural networks of this shared consciousness are all kind of like, we all have these reference points to go back to, but they manifest in such different ways. It's wild.
Tell me about Let the Light Leak In and walk us a little bit through your healing protocol, because I imagine that everybody who's hearing your story and has even one of those diagnoses is like, how do I get some of that?
So I think when I talk to people about frequency medicine, some people are a little confused because I don't feel that it's always mainstream knowledge, frequency medicine and biofield science and quantum biology specifically. And so Let the Light Leak In really is an information and a resource and tools to access, how to unblock your biofield and how to have your quantum biology be functioning optimally. So most protocols, as I have said, are really focused on the cellular reactions in our body. And I always say this a million times, like everything starts energetically before it manifests biochemically. And so, yes, although it seemed like I got sick one day, it was probably manifesting in the biofield for a long time. So my whole protocols and my brand is to, how do we live in resonance, not only with our own internal bodies and environments, but with the external environment. So then we can come here and express freely and have health and vitality and longevity and really be in this
one as a part of the whole, recognizing.
Right. So my approach is a little bit different because I don't have these crazy fancy devices and I don't have millions of dollars of supplements to sell people. So I really see...
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
Feels good.
I wish, no. But it's because, again, even in the supplement industry, unfortunately, as it turned out, it's just treating the symptom instead of looking at the whole. And so that's really where my protocol and my brand comes in, is looking at the whole, seeing where in the biofield, what is causing the blockage in the biofield, and how do we unblock it so then your prana, your chi, can move through freely so you can heal and be in that harmony and communion with your environment. And so the first step of that process really looks like, again, water, hydration is the baseline. If you are cellularly dehydrated and people think just drinking enough water is enough, drinking water is a great start, but how's that water being absorbed and recognized by your body? How is it moving into your cells? And so this is really where minerals and nutrients are super important. So focusing on that. And then if our body or cells are like batteries that power the engine of our whole body, how do I recharge the battery? How do I put out any acute fires before rebuilding the house? And so that's really what I focus on initially. And then we can produce these, there's these fancy devices now, and I don't use any of that. It's how do our own thoughts and emotions, and specifically our subconscious and our imprints and these other things we might pick up that might not be in our conscious awareness, how can we unblock those? And so through different meditation, obviously, is a huge tool. Through sound technology and different energetic practices and pranayama, we don't even have to think about, because in traditional talk therapy, sometimes you got to relive the trauma over and over.
This is correct. And sometimes it's like to just stay there, to circle the drain a little bit. Yeah.
And so I hear so often people tell me, I've been in therapy for years and I know what's wrong, but I just can't seem to get past it. And so a lot of that lived experience actually really takes place in our nervous system, in our subconscious. And our nervous system, I feel, is like the timekeeper of that subconscious. I won't want to call it brain, because subconscious energy, because I think it exists sometimes outside of us in these other bodies we have.
All these, I feel like they are, they were light bearers, right? Like early light bearers,
right?
To tell us exactly this. Only now we have scans that can measure it.
Totally.
Right. And that feels good, because then we can anchor more deeply into
and pinpoint exactly where there might be, which I think, because sometimes you're not even sure, you're like, I know something's up, but I'm not 100% sure. And maybe I feel like sometimes, you go to a doctor and they're like, everything looks fine. But then these tools, like these bioresonance tools, like, no, actually there's something on these higher levels that's happening. Yeah. So,
I might butcher this, so forgive me, but I remember I was at a dispenser retreat and, they had a group of women, I believe it was, do you know about this already?
Mm-mm.
They had a group of women who all had, was it cervical cancer? Or there was, I believe it was a form of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find out what this is
Yeah.
and get it clear and share this. But it was something to the effect of when they read their biofields of these women, every single one of them that ended up having what I think was cervical cancer had the same break in the same place of their biofield. So they actually could reverse code and recognize that that was an indicator of cervical cancer coming in the future.
Yeah. Wow.
It's very profound, and that's the thing, is like everything is energy before it is formed. And if we can really appreciate it as a part of the conversation, right, as it coming to early inform us. You know, it's like we don't even need to live in the land of symptoms, possibly. 100%. Unless, like, also that's a part of your journey, and like that's the, like, sometimes, you know, I have to touch the stove 10 times before I realize this burns, you know, like, so whatever, to each their own course. But
I always say, like, the body whispers before it starts to scream. And I really believe that sometimes you might dismiss something as, oh, this is just a normal thing that other people have, or maybe it's not that big of a deal. And then later, it just, because you're ignoring it and you're pushing past it, it turns into something. Correct. Unfortunately, that's, you know, full blown. So
I feel that water is the whisperer.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's exactly. And then, and even how we know water in our own, like, 3-dimensional experience, right? That she is softness. And she is transparent and revealing. And at the same time, she cuts rock. Like, she means business, and she's to be taken seriously.
100%.
Right? And she's all of those things. And I feel like, we're really...
Yeah, I mean, it's no coincidence that, like, our bodies are 70% water, and, like, the earth is how much, I don't want to get it wrong, but how much? 70% water.
Yeah, right? It's almost the same by volume, but we are actually more than 99% water by molecular count.
Wow.
So that's where the trip is. Yeah, and the universe is also 99+% water.
Wow.
Right, molecular hydrogen. So, and when like they look out to the farthest point with the James Webb Telescope, what they see is liquid light. So crazy. It's like this, all that it is. And they and quantum physicists, they liken our experience to, as though we are fish swimming in water, but just the way that fish are unaware, we are unaware.
Totally. Yeah. Wow.
But now we are waking up.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's a really important thing, because, you know, traditional medicine, and most times you go to a practitioner, I mean, I've even seen some, I can't just isolate it to Western, but Eastern, we are going off this basis of Newtonian physics. And Newtonian physics is great when we're talking about systems, like if we're looking at a big car, or we're looking at, like, a tree, or, like, I don't know, like big portion of land. But when we're talking about our own bodies, and when we're talking about the water, we really have to dive in deeper to these quantum interactions.
Yeah. And now we can.
Yeah.
Because it's like, really, it's revealed to us.
Yeah.
One of my water teachers was explaining that, I love this so much. She was saying that there was a time where water scientists were geeking out over a single water molecule.
Wow.
And now there's so much understanding about the way water molecules are in conversation with each other. The parallel she drew was like science looking at the hand and trying to just understand the hand, and now recognizing it as a part of a greater system. You know, the muscular system, the vascular system, and how the brain communicates and you know, instructs the hand what to pick up, what to let go of. And what they're seeing is that these water molecules have more than 440,000 panels on them, each cluster. And each panel has a job of receiving information, storing information, communicating out information to the other, right? To all other hydrogen. Right? Which is in ourselves, in the cells that we're talking about, surrounding them, in the field, right? In the ethers. So for being, I hope to be able to share in easy ways the way we are water communicating with more water that is your baby's soul. And then what can that communication look like so that it can be the invitation you really mean, right? Not clouded in fear and anxieties and all the early childhood holdings and traumas, right? And so what's the conversation that really tells the child, no, mom is ready, right? And I think what I'm gathering is that actually the souls that are taking a moment for mom to align before they meet her is all a part of intelligence or consciousness's plan to up structure in this moment.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it's like we're coming to be coherent. There's a coherence, like a tuning that is happening.
Yeah.
And the souls who are destined to come know that, and they are almost tuning the mother vessel to match them so that they can be the imprint of that in the world.
That's so interesting. Yeah. That's so like...
feels like it's the time.
Yeah. It's like, and especially like what you were saying about just like the mother's, like how her feelings and how her like subconscious and how these different imprints like imprint on the fetus or the baby, and it's just, but they come here with being very coherent and having that structured code, how that like restructuring and again with water can just occur in our own bodies and in the environment is incredible.
Yes.